Would the translator please give instructions on translation services available?
Buenas noches. Se utilizará la función de interpretación de Zoom para soporte en inglés y español. Todos los participantes de esta llamada deben seleccionar su idioma de preferencia, haciendo clic en el idioma correspondiente cuando el anfitrión active la función de interpretación. Dicha función se encuentra en el panel de herramientas, en el icono del globo terráqueo. El modo de interpretación para esta reunión será el simultáneo. Gracias por su atención y colaboración. Good evening. The Zoom interpretation feature will be used in this Zoom meeting for English and Spanish support. All participants on this call must select their language of preference by clicking the language when the host turns on the interpretation feature. This is found in the world icon located on your feature panel. Interpretation for this meeting will be conducted simultaneously. Thank you for your attention and collaboration.
Thank you. Please note that a recording is being made at the direction of the board and that the recording may capture sounds of those attending the meeting. I see that all other board members except for Jeff Arnett are here. He won't be attending tonight, so we can begin. We're on to item 2, the approval of the agenda. If there's any member of the public who would like to speak on the approval of the agenda, please use the raised hand feature now. Or raise your hand if you're in the room. Someone there, maybe Dr. Gallagher.
There's currently no public in the room.
Excellent, thank you. Someone will eventually have to help me with that. Anyone?
No one on Zoom.
Super. Okay, board, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye, and with that, the motion passes. We're on to item 3, public comments on closed session items. Time limits allocated to public testimony are 3 minutes per person and 20 minutes for public comments. Speakers are asked to give their name and affiliation so that an accurate record is reflected in the minutes. Per our board bylaw 9323, the board shall not prohibit public criticism of its policies, procedures, programs, services, acts, or omissions. During public comment, we encourage speakers to discuss issues with civility, to treat people whose opinions differ from their own with respect, and to focus on ideas, policies, and values. Is there any public comment or if there is a public comment on closed session items, please use the raised hand feature.
No one.
No one, okay. Okay, we're on to item 4, convening to closed session. When we come back, we'll report out and begin open session at 7 p.m. Pacific time. See you soon. Thank you.
All right.
Hello. I just need to make sure my son is safely where he needs to be. So I just need 1 minute. I'll be right back.
Yeah, let's have the interpreters do their announcement right now. That's great.
Buenas noches. Se utilizará la función de interpretación de Zoom para soporte en inglés y español. Todos los participantes de esta llamada deben seleccionar su idioma de preferencia haciendo clic en el idioma correspondiente cuando el anfitrión active la función de interpretación. Dicha función se encuentra en el panel de herramientas en el icono del globo terráqueo. El modo de interpretación para esta reunión será el simultáneo. Gracias por su atención y colaboración. Good evening. The Zoom interpretation feature will be used in this Zoom meeting for English and Spanish support. All participants on this call must select their language of preference by clicking the language when the host turns on the interpretation feature. This is found in the word icon located on your feature panel. Interpretation for this meeting will be conducted simultaneously. Thank you for your attention and collaboration.
Okay. Thank you. So I see that the translator gave the instructions again. Thank you very, very much. Did you already give the closed session announcements, Michelle,
Yeah.
or anyone? No. Okay. Right. Okay. So we're reconvening to open session at 7:02. Sorry, I keep looking at the clock on my computer. And for those of you joining now, please note that a recording is being made at the direction of the board and that the recording may capture any sounds of those attending the meeting. Item A, closed session announcements. The board met in closed session to discuss superintendent performance goals and to confer with our labor negotiator. No action was taken. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So it's time for item 6, comments from the board and superintendent. We can start with Nancy, do you want to start?
Yes. So I appreciate all the activities that happen towards the end of the school year. I know how it impacts work-life balance, but they're exciting celebrations, and I'm glad that everybody who is able to participate can do so safely. I did want to mention, board, as a follow-up from our board development meeting, that I am working on the updates of that one page to our governance handbook. I should have that out to you next week for your review before we compile it. And I sent in the rest of my, I'll send in the rest of my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yeah. First, it was great yesterday to be at the district. I'm really glad to have the district employee recognition celebration yesterday, and we got to do it in person. So that was really fun, and I appreciate all of the staff who put that together, and the work that was involved with that. And then also, I kind of missed a lot of the fun festivities. This is my first week back from COVID. So I've kind of been out until this week. Also, I wanted to share on Tuesday was our virtual board office hours, and we had a few people come. Someone gave some input, just kind of their experience with independent study and some feedback they had from that. And then someone has a kid at one of our schools, and then TK, and trying to like get them at the same school, had some questions about that. Just kind of some other general questions. I think that was kind of the main comments, right? So that was on Tuesday. And then I just wanted to share, some of you might be like get the League of Women Voters emails, but just with all this stuff, I mean, stuff's been happening for like 2 years now, right? but then also just recently with the shootings, and just sometimes it feels overwhelming in education world, the amount of like stuff that we need to do to like help and support people, and then just also in the country and the world. Anyway, they shared a quote that I just really, really loved and was helpful for me, so I just want to share it. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. And that was just a helpful thing that I appreciated with everything that is going on. And that's it.
Thank you. Isabel?
Sure. Well, I think in the last time, since last meeting, we had, well, we've been preparing also, I think it is on the agenda, but it wasn't on your email, about the workshop for candidates. And we're going to have one with the CSB, the Santa Clara CSBA on the 11th on the county's office. And I think we're going to have another one here at the district. And other than that, the one at the county is going to be in person. We're going to have breakfast, and we're going to have a guest and a panel. So it's going to be at least 2 hours. And it seems to be getting very interesting. Then yesterday we went to the end of the year retirement party, and last week was the other one, the SEA retirement party. So we were able to see and meet and talk with all our very interesting and very valuable teachers and employees. And yesterday we had the opportunity to celebrate amazing work that we have done here. And you can see all the love that people put into their work. Also, we are starting the Pride Month, and with that, together with our equity job that we've been working every month, we worked last month in our governance meetings. I just wanted to say that I think I feel, and I think most of, but I don't know if I can talk with most of us in the board, but very proud how we celebrate the uniqueness of our children, and how we can see in the middle schools, when you walk around, you can see how our children are very proud of being who they are, and they're exploring to know each one of them who they are. And I think that's very awesome that we can do that and support them and give them the liberty and the safety to do so. And also in our, and make them feel safe. And it has been a very hard month, I suppose, for education and for everybody who has children, for everybody who loves children, but pretty much for everybody who has children and loves children. We were all stabbed in the heart last week. And well, and to acknowledge that we can move forward and work together, try to feel everybody to feel safe, and to also understand, as we say in the governance workshop that we've been saying the last few weeks, acknowledging our equity, anti-racism work, and how we put it into work inside the classrooms and everywhere. How important it is to acknowledge that we're not perfect, acknowledge that we made a lot of mistakes, and how we can move forward and evolve and do something and be better. So as we're finishing the year, is taking all the good stuff and all the work that we're doing, acknowledging that it's not perfect, and making sure that we work hard to make it better. So thank you guys. That's it.
That's right.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess it's my turn. So I did send in my activities. There are far fewer of them this last 2 weeks than usual, because I've been so busy with my son's graduation activities, and his volleyball team made it to state and they won. So it was very exciting. And he graduated, he got MVP. He made it to the first team of the conference, and he got MVP of the league. And so it was like a lot of celebrations around volleyball and then graduating. We had a few outdoor meals with grandparents that flew in from all over. One set of grandparents brought COVID with them. So 4 out of the 6 grandparents contracted COVID this weekend. It's very terrible. So it's out there, it spreads quickly, even if you take precautions. So I really hope everyone stays safe. And it makes me very happy that they've all been vaccinated and boosted because their symptoms are very mild. But at least one set of them is very annoyed with me and will be forever. I'm going to hear about it for my whole life. But that's okay. And then I wanted to say that right after the board meeting last week, I did go to delegate assembly. It was a full 2 days of meetings, and there was a ton of information. And I have been waiting for them to release the slides to give my report to the board to report back. Much of the conference was about, there was some things on bylaws, which all passed without a lot of drama. It was very quick this time. And most of the conversation was around the federal and state budget around education. So I just want to say that I'm really appreciative of so many people on this board and our superintendent for being so active, advocating for the children of California, because many of the things that CSBA was asking for and that we've been asking for are going to happen, and some probably not, but those things wouldn't be there if everybody wasn't working so hard for them to make our needs known. And the other activity that I'd like to highlight was that I did have a chance. I thought I was going to speak at CMS's promotion. Unfortunately, I'm in Idaho right now for my son's surgery. He had a shoulder surgery, and he's going to need some more care a little bit longer than expected. So I will be in Idaho for a few more days beyond what I expected. And I guess I had to prepare for my CMS speech. I thought I would go out and talk to some of the kids. And that was absolutely, even with all the family things going on and all the other work of the board, that was probably one of the most fun hours I've had. I went out at lunch. I brought some little snacky treats that were completely healthy. And I brought a wheel for the kids to spin. And if they could choose which question they were going to ask. Name one thing you've learned at CMS since you've been here. Or the other one was tell me a hope or dream. And I probably had maybe 75 kids come up and spin because they really wanted that orange or whatever. And I got to really hear some great stories from the kids. So I'll, send that out in an email just for your enjoyment. Some were quite silly and some were trying to get a reaction from the adult. And some were very profound and sweet. So anyway, I just really enjoyed doing that. And I also had a really good tour of San Miguel with the principal. That was another highlight. So I got to see the classrooms because I had been meaning to get out there for several months. Okay, so thank you very much for the time. Mike, you're up.
Okay, a couple of things. Isabel, you referenced the candidate forum, and there's actually going to be now 3, right? So there's a county one, a school boards association one, and we're going to do our own. The date on that is Tuesday, the 21st at 6:00 p.m. So for anyone in the public who's listening, there'll be more information on this, but 6:00, it'll be over Zoom on the 21st of June. Just another avenue of information about running for the Board of Education, what it means to be on the Board of Education. We'll have Board of Education members there. So that one will be more specific just to Sunnyvale, obviously. I want to thank you, Isabel, for mentioning Pride Month. There's something that happened today when you were talking, I was thinking like this couldn't have happened just a few years ago. One of our teachers came up to me and talked to me about like what his plan was to celebrate Pride. And I thought, I just kind of took it for granted. And I thought a few years ago, not that long ago, or in other places, an openly gay teacher wouldn't have that conversation with an openly gay superintendent. So that was my moment of pride. So thank you for bringing that up. And that's part of the culture that this Board of Education is encouraging and this community is encouraging. So I think it's very healthy for our kids. Another event that I went to, so they're all over, there's all kinds of celebrations all over. And I like to look at them through the lens of like what we're trying to accomplish as a governance team, right? So today, a reclassification ceremony, and I realized San Miguel is here, they've had their own, I'm sure it was wonderful, but I was at another school and it was fantastic because of a couple of things that were said. First of all, one of the teachers, Angie Cordova, talked about her own journey to multilingualism. Talked about growing up in a predominantly Spanish-speaking community, talked about her journey to learning English, being inspired by driving by a university, and she brought it together in a wonderful keynote. And she did it in Spanish first, which I think is a really important concept that we as a district are talking about, giving the primary language primacy, right? It's not a secondary thing, and valuing multilingualism. And the assistant principal, Vivian Matsuyama, her final message to the group was, remember to honor your first language. So this is in action, really the vision of the Board of Education, the governance team, so I appreciate that. Last thing I wanna just say just a few words about Uvalde. So one of the things, board, this weekend, in the weekend update, I'm gonna send out a draft. Actually, it's Mountain View Wistman's resolution that they have about gun violence. And I'm gonna suggest that we adopt something similar for us with Sunnyvale, of course, in it. That's one action we can take. The day of the tragedy, we were at Lakewood for the site visit. And what I asked everyone in the group that day was just to stop and to take a moment of silence, really a minute of silence. And during that minute, to think about a personal action plan that they could take. And to me, that's powerful for us all to stop to have a personal action plan. And I would offer that personal action plan might be for grownups to start with themselves. I say that because I've got notes from teachers, veteran teachers, who said that was the most demoralizing, most difficult event that they've encountered, and it made it difficult for them to go on, okay? So a personal action plan could start with taking care of yourself. Other personal action plans could include thoughts and prayers. Sometimes that's derided. I don't mean to deride it at all because I think that's powerful. Other personal action plans might be political, might be whatever it is. But I think what's important is that we take a moment and we develop a personal action plan about what we can do to make our community safer, to make ourselves safer, and mostly to keep our kids safer. So those are my comments for today.
Thank you. Before we go on to item 7, I did forget to mention, I did have something I wanted to say about the school shootings, and I'm really great. I really look forward to the resolution. But I think that you know, when I was at my son's graduation, it was very powerful. You could see a lot of parents were reflecting on the fact that like how lucky we are to have our kids that day, you know. So it's I'm hopeful that we can do something at the county level as well. Okay, so with that, we are on to comments from the Sunnyvale Education Association. I don't see anyone in the attendees. Is there anyone in the room who's an official representative?
No.
No. I don't see anyone in attendees who's an official representative, but if you're there and just misnamed somehow, Please use the raised hand feature now. Okay, seeing none, item 8, comments from the California School Employees Association. If there's an official representative online or in person, please raise your hand. Is there anyone in person? Sorry, I cannot see.
No.
Nope.
Okay, seeing none online, we're on to item 9, comments from the public. Is there anyone in the room to speak tonight?
No.
Not now. Okay, so comments from the public. I do see several people attending online. This is the time on the agenda to comment about things that are not on the agenda. This portion of the agenda provides an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the governing board on any item of interest to the public. However, provisions of the Brown Act, Government Code 54954.2a and .3 preclude any action being taken on an item not appearing on the agenda. In plain speaking terms, that means that the board can only receive information during this time. We cannot speak to or about items that are not on our agenda. Time limits allocated to public testimony are 3 minutes per person and 20 minutes for public comments. Speakers are asked to give their name and affiliation so that an accurate record is reflected in the minutes. If you would like to speak in this section remotely on Zoom, please use the raised hand feature now. Okay, I see a few hands up. And as a reminder, per our board bylaw 9323, the board shall not prohibit criticism of its policies, procedures, programs, services, acts, or omissions. During public comment, we encourage speakers to discuss issues with civility, to treat people whose opinions differ from their own with respect, and to focus on ideas, policies, and values. I no longer see my participants. Okay, the first person I have on the screen is Judy. Your times, you can see the timer on the screen. It will start when you're speaking. You can unmute.
Hi, can you hear me okay? Great.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Judy Lau, and I'm a parent of a 7-year-old homeschool district, Bishop Elementary School. We decided to not attend Bishop School because being bilingual and biliterate is very important for our family, and we end up using a Mandarin private school for her. So I'm here to speak about starting a Mandarin immersion program as a program of choice in the Sunnyvale district. We've been working really closely, with the district, and it's in 2019. And I really think that it's a really good program to proceed. And I do want to encourage you to start acting quickly, potentially to start this program in 2023. The more time we delay this program, more people will miss out on this program. And if you can, looking at the data from other districts, the Mandarin immersion program, it's a very, very popular program in many Bay Area districts, and it's one that has many waiting lists every year over and over, many years, especially in the Cupertino School District. So I do want to just continue to support this program and make sure that the board and the district is aware of a continued interest from a parent group and want to proceed forward as quickly as possible. That's all the comments I have for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. The next speaker will be Maggie, and this timer will begin whenever you begin talking. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Maggie. I'm a parent of 2 kids, a 2-year-old and an incoming kinder at Cumberland. I wanted to also voice my support for starting a Mandarin immersion program as a program of choice. And I hope that we can do it for the 2023 school year with kinder as well as 1st grade, so that my son has an opportunity to attend as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Okay, we are on, I don't see any other hands up. So I believe we are done with public comment. Item 10, public hearing, 10A. It's a public hearing for the development impact fee, justification, review and update, and the proposed statutory level 1 developer fees. Brant Burns, Director of Facilities and Operations.
All right. Good evening, board members, members of cabinet, and members of the public and district employees. I do want to start by saying that my thoughts, and I know the operations department's thoughts, go out to all the families and individuals impacted by the events in Texas. With that, I want to say that this public hearing tonight is in regards to justifying raising the maximum level 1 developer fees for Sunnyvale School District. Developer fees were put in place in order to mitigate the impacts that new developments have across the district. Every 2 years, the State Allocation Board meets to determine if and by how much developer fees will be increased. This year, the State Allocation Board met in February and determined that they were going to increase the maximum assessment up to 17.8%. And that is an all-time high increase over a 2-year span. What that means for us is that the new maximum rate would be $4.79 per square foot for any residential development in the district. And since Sunnyvale School District is not a unified district, we have a fee sharing agreement with Fremont Union High School District. So any decisions that we made have been in collaboration with Fremont Union to make sure that we are both coming to the same consensus in regards to the justification for raising these level 1 impact fees. Next slide is just illustrating briefly the last 8 years and the developer fee increases that we've seen. For the last 6, previous to the duration between 2020 and 2022, things have increased in between 3% and 8%. In between 2020 and 2022, like I said, we've seen the 17.8% increase, and most of that being the period between 2020 and 2021, which was a 15.8% increase. And these increases are determined by reviewing the construction cost index to see how much escalation has increased for the cost of construction. And then a brief history of the last few years in our developer fee fund balance, Fund 25. You can see here what we've spent developer fees on and how much we've pulled in from developer fees. I will say that the last couple of years are a little bit unique due to the uncertainty within the district, and so you won't see large expenditures there. I do want to say that within our developer fee report, we do clearly state what our plans and intentions are for these new developer fees that we're going to be taking in. And here you can see the illustration of what this increase would mean to Sunnyvale School District. This would be increasing our statutory rate from $2.52 to $2.96, and the commercial projects from 41 cents to 48 cents. With that, we'll open it up to questions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I believe now we open the public hearing, correct?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Okay, so all right, it is now 7:29 p.m. I'm opening the public hearing. Just writing that down. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this item? Are there any members of the public in the boardroom?
No.
No. Okay, if there's a member of the public online who would like to speak on this item, please use the raised hand feature now. Okay, seeing none, it is 8:30 p.m. And I'm closing the public hearing. Any discussion from the board?
Nope, just thank you for all your work with it.
And you actually closed the hearing at 7:30.
7:30, right? Sorry, again, it's my clock, Idaho. Okay, 7:30. It hasn't been an hour already. Hour and 1 minute. Okay, great. So, any discussion from anyone else? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much, Brant.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to item 11, presentations. 11A is the San Miguel School presentation. The Board of Education will hear a presentation from San Miguel Elementary School about progress towards the district's goals and priorities. Principal Esteban Ibarra and team.
Hola, buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me here. We'll just start with a quick introduction. Me llamo Esteban Ibarra. Soy el director de la Escuela San Miguel. My name is Esteban Ibarra. I'm the proud principal of San Miguel Elementary School. I know that y'all introduce yourselves.
Good evening, I'm Nicole Fiala, the assistant principal at San Miguel.
Thank you. And your share slide, please. Yeah, I'm getting there. Thank you. Gracias. So we'll start with the reason we're all here tonight, which is our nuestro porqué, our students. So these next few slides, we're just going to go over some typical students. These aren't the real names that we have at San Miguel. So we'll start with our first, we call Julia. We'll call Julia. She's a second grade student in our Juntos program. Julia, some of her assets she brings to school. She's a strong bilingual model. She's a native Spanish speaker. She's learning English as a second language. She has very strong and clear communication skills. She is self-aware, so she's able to communicate her emotions very well with our staff, with other students. She has really good attendance, except for trimester 2. The month of January was an impact on all of us. She had 5 absences during the second trimester. She's an artist, and she's actually in both reading and math interventions this year. In August, Julia started off with a bit of a negative attitude. You could say she didn't really like school, didn't think very fondly of it. And then she was also a struggling reader. So she was at the beginning reading level, kinder instructional level, though she was in second grade. She also struggled with math, especially around number sense and understanding place value, and just counting flexibly, up to 100. By May, or by the end of this last month, she actually is very excited for intervention. So she doesn't like being late, and she's a second grader, so she also helps out with the first grade intervention groups, and she does her own little prep. She's a bit of a little teacher, and she actually gets really upset if groups are canceled. So if our SEO TOSA has to go and do some subbing or is out for any particular reason, little Julia gets upset. She's now reading with level 8 with expression, and she's come a long way in math as well. This next student, we'll call him Jimmy. He's a third grade neighborhood student. He's a Latino male. He lives with both his parents and his siblings. He's the oldest of the 3 siblings, and one of his best assets is that he's a family first student. He actually takes care of the younger ones a lot, and he's very proud and responsible in doing so. He has a very positive learning attitude. His parents are also great. They love all the resources that our school or our district offers them, and they use it. He is also bilingual, and he's a very hard worker. He puts the best effort. So Jimmy actually came from another school at the beginning of the school year. He already had some intervention paperwork, we call MTSS paperwork, behind him. At the beginning of the year, he couldn't count past 36. And he had just difficulty with letter sounds. Again, around kinder level, being a third grade student. He's a language learner, and during the fall, like I said, he was reading around the kinder level. Now, towards the end of the school year, he came up to 1,000 and knows his math facts very well. He went from a beginning reading level to a level G. He's an after school intervention with this teacher. He's in KLAS and actually qualified for special education this year. Like I said, he knows his letter sounds. He's made tons of growth. And then finally, we have Samuel. So Samuel is another student in the Juntos group. He's a Latino male on campus. He lives with both his parents and his siblings. He's also a language learner. He's the youngest male of 4 children. And at the beginning of the year, he was really struggling in both the math and the reading areas. This year, he's received interventions with the teacher mostly during small group instruction. The teacher has done a great job just communicating with parents, building a strong relationship with them. And in doing so, Samuel has just really, really grown. He was also part of our SLG Plus last year, which he had some difficulties, but this year he really took off, which is great to see. He gets a lot of one-on-one working time with the teacher as well. He's in special education, so he gets some minutes there as well. But by the end of the year, he's a model student. He has a very positive just outlook on life, school. He's definitely one of the leaders in class. He cooperates with not just his teacher, but with others as well. And actually his resource minutes have been reduced this year because he is doing so well academically and social emotionally. That's someone. And of course, we can't talk about students without talking about data. So with these next few slides, they're just quick snapshots around math and reading, and then we'll do a quick summary afterwards. So this next slide looks at our math neighborhood data, and it looks at the beginning of the year in trimester 2. This is an exam and assessment that we take only twice a year this year, so we don't have Tri 3 data, but we do have beginning of the year and trimester 2 data. And then our next slide illustrates our math Juntos data. So this is just Juntos strand into account. And then finally, this is the one curricular area that math is that universal language as far as standards. So we did combine the numbers in order to look at the math data together for both Juntos and neighborhood. So in summary, what we saw this year with math is that overall proficiency went from about 22% to about 25% in K-5 when we look at both Juntos and neighborhood together. First grade neighborhood and first grade Juntos had the highest percentage of students scoring proficient. And third grade neighborhood and fifth grade Juntos had the most growth. So overall proficiency is about 25% of the student body, so about a quarter. So our next step for next year is going to be math is going to be our instructional focus for the next following years. And of course, we're going to adopt a new curriculum, which we know will be helpful as well. So this is definitely going to be an area for our school site to work on. On the other side of that, we have reading, bit of the same process. So this is reading, going to be a reading neighborhood. And again, assessments are taken twice, beginning of the year in trimester 2. Sorry. And this is the reading data for Juntos in the Juntos program. And this next one is the reading Juntos in English. Juntos students from third grade through fifth actually take 2 assessments. They'll take both in Spanish and they'll take this assessment in English as well. So in summary, overall neighborhood growth went from 45 to 55% proficiency overall. Overall Juntos reading growth in Spanish went from 29 to 35% overall as a school. Second grade neighborhood had 63% of students proficient, which is great. Fifth grade Juntos had 65% of students proficient in Spanish. And Juntos third through fifth grade percentages of proficiency was up pretty much every year. And this is even though that ELA instruction is not given into the third grade for the Juntos program. And by the end of the fifth grade, 64% of our Juntos students were proficient in English as well. So that's really good data. And I think the way that we frame it on our campus, it's a team effort. I know sometimes we look at it, when we look at proficiency, we look at it by grade level. But the way we think about it at staff is everybody on staff had a hand to do with it by the time they got to fifth grade at the end of it. So it's really great to see. So our next steps around reading is really just to continue to build on the strengths that we already have on some of the assets. And then how to, think of ways to continue to support students with foundational literacy skills, early interventions, even before, kinder, whether it's, through TK or maybe in the future, like a Juntos TK or something, just to really get the students ready before they come kinder. There we go. And here are just some of our best practices that we look at when we're on campus. So hopefully if you've been able to be on campus lately, I know some of you have, which is great. We hope that you saw one of the focus areas this year has been the guided language acquisition design, which we call GLAD. So some of our teachers have been trained in the past. And this year with some of the new folks, new teachers that we have this year, we're training them. All our Juntos teachers are also trained in the Spanish portion of it. So if you've been on campus, hopefully you've seen things such as pictorials, chants, students collaborating, graphic organizers, sentence frames. And this isn't just glad, it's just good practice. Another thing that we highlight on campus is that we have small group instruction all the way from TK through 5th grade, especially around ELA and math. And we're still just trying to, looking for, there's resources and opportunities to bridge the gap between the school and home. One of the things that we're looking for launching for next year is something called B Readers, where it's taking authentic Spanish literature that's written by authors in Latin America and Latino Latin American authors for students to be able to use at home. So it's called B Readers, it's a program that we're excited to launch next year to hopefully help reinforce some of those practices. Probably pressing the wrong button, sorry. So one of the other things we try to reinforce on campus through our best practice visits are the bullets up there. But the things that we have given feedback on during just quick visits or formal observations have been making sure that teachers have clear learning norms, which they do, an interactive approach to teaching. So whether it's again, small group or strategies such as call and response, or students just kind of come up, working in groups, coming up with their own knowledge and learning, and that discovery method we do on campus. And our teachers do a lot of checking for understanding as well. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Viola to talk a little bit more about best practices. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ibarra. Yes, so we've been really fortunate to partner with Colleen Lynch Espinosa, who's our TOSA, who's supporting with equitable outcomes on campus. So I'm going to share just a snapshot about what's happening with her work. As Mr. Ibarra mentioned, we have been really blessed with a lot of great resources in Spanish, but in addition, that also brings a lot of challenges because our SEO TOSA is supporting in both languages. She's working mainly with 1st and 2nd grade students who came performing below grade level. Actually, at the beginning of this year, we had approximately 47% of our 1st and 2nd grade students performing below grade level and needing additional support. She also works with a few Junto students in the 3rd grade program as well. The focus of the intervention groups that she's been working with as well as we have several bilingual para educators that help her. They focus a lot around phonemic awareness, phonics, and comprehension within reading. And then in math, they're working a lot around foundational math skills, place value, counting, and addition and subtraction. At the beginning of the year, again, we had a handful of students performing below grade level, as I mentioned. However, we've seen some significant growth in the work that she's been doing, which is really great and wonderful to celebrate. We had approximately, we had about approximately 72% of our 2nd graders were below grade level, and they've made about a half a year of growth, if not more. All of our students at the beginning of the year that were performing at a kindergarten level, again, in these 1st and 2nd grade cohorts, have made a year's worth of growth while working with Maestra Lynch in the program and, again, her paraeducator support team, which is great. There do continue to be challenges, again, supporting in both languages. As you can imagine, we're doing 2 content areas, both literacy and math, and then we also have the 2 languages that continue to be a challenge, but we have a great team. I think an area of growth, as Mr. Ibarra mentioned, is we just continue to seek out materials, especially for intervention. There's currently no math materials in Spanish available, so our team has been sort of piecing things together for the intervention team, but I'm excited to share. I think there's some work coming next year around the math in particular for intervention, so that's great. And then I think just another big area that we're exploring is just finding more, again, authentic text, not just text that's been translated, but authentic text for students to use. I'm also just really pleased to highlight that we have a lot of great intervention supports happening for our upper grade students. We're fortunate to have bilingual paras or paraeducators in a lot of our upper grade classrooms as well. All of our 3rd through 5th grade classrooms have small group reading happening on a regular basis, which is great to see. We also have a para who's working hard to support a group of newcomers. We have a handful of newcomers in the 4th and 5th grade cohort, so we're working hard to build their English skills as well. And our instructional coach, Mary Beth Rodriguez, works really hard. She does push-in support to support with a special focus on Spanish writing in the upper grades. One of the things that we're also really blessed or thankful for is just that we continue to have a really small teacher to student ratio in our classroom. So we just really thank the board and Mike for your support with that. It's really benefited our students. This is just a snapshot again of best practices that we see around campus, and we're just really proud of. Our team at San Miguel works extremely hard. Mr. Ibarra again highlighted some of these earlier, but I think again some next steps for us is just continuing to explore differentiated support for all students who are performing, of course, who need extra support performing below grade level, but also students who are ready for an additional push and performing above grade level expectation and providing additional resources for them, as well as just more work around math. That's a big area of focus for us. And then some new ideas we're exploring around behavioral support for next year for our tier 3 students who have some more extreme behavioral needs. I'm just going to highlight a few things about our school environment. This is just our attendance at a glance. I just want to highlight that this does not include COVID-related absences or any excused absences, but we've been really pleased with our school as a whole and the efforts that our parents have put in to continue to bring their students to school on a regular basis. We currently have approximately 82% of students who would be considered on-track college ready as far as their attendance, and about 18% of our families have been flagged for needing additional supports to support their students to ensure that they're at school on time on a regular basis. So we have a great team that we put together who just supports between administration, our coach, our community outreach, and of course our social worker who do a lot of work on we plan attendance meetings, and then we reach out to families to really find out what is the reason behind absences and how we can support with that, whether it's transportation or, again, just making sure that they're in constant communication with the office if they have needs that we can support with. I'm also going to share a little bit about behavior. So I'm sure this is happening in a lot of places, but we have had some spikes and different times of the year where behaviors have become more challenging. I think something that is interesting as we looked at the data, we really noticed that there was a spike in our major behavioral referrals that came from 1st and 2nd grade students. So I think in reflection, thinking about that, we thought a lot of this has to do with those students in particular have really missed a lot of that they missed a lot of the foundational learning, especially around social interactions with peers and foundational support that because of the pandemic, either they had no formal schooling when they started in the fall with us, or their kindergarten year was cut short because of the pandemic and they returned. And so that's, I think, why we see a lot of behavioral needs in that area and that grade level in particular, or those grade levels. Similarly, I think part of our major referrals, like we noticed there's a big part of that was around physical aggression, we'll call it, although a lot of it tends to be a playful type thing. At the beginning of the year, especially, we noticed students had a hard time with spatial awareness and body and just making sure that they were mindful about other people and that some people need more space than others and those things. So we've been really working hard on building capacity for students to support each other, explaining how they're feeling and those types of things. This is something we're really proud of. So this is sort of the action that we take from administrative side, and of course our teachers have the foundational work in the classroom when there are referrals that are happening for more major concerns or issues. We work really hard to spend time conferencing with students, so that far bar there that's the highest that tends to be one of our main strategies. We've been doing a lot of work as a staff around restorative justice practices and just really ensuring that students reflect on their own behaviors and then also have a chance to interact positively and have some restorative conversations or healing conversations with other students who are involved in any of the instances. And it's just another highlight here of some of the hard work we done last year. We spent a lot of time training all of our staff in restorative justice practices, but this is something that when you come to campus, we're really proud of. We have a lot of, our classrooms are participating daily on morning and closing circles. Again, conflict mediation is a big thing that we're working on our campus, just exploring ideas for alternatives to suspension when there are major issues, like how can we, again, working on the restorative piece, and then how can we build student capacity for reflecting on their actions more. And then we have also implemented a lot of work where upper grade students who maybe have had some behavioral needs in the past are taking on leadership roles in the younger grades, which has been really great.
And in connection with those practices, we also have our social emotional learning, which Stella kind of led into. So part of that work comes from our Shark Spirit team. So our Shark Spirit team is made up of teachers, social worker, school administrators, and they bring kind of the fun to San Miguel. So they put together our monthly virtual assemblies. Next week we'll have our first one in person actually. And teachers are able to recognize students with monthly certificates there. That don't necessarily have to be academic, it could be around SEL or making good choices or just growth. We also take the time to spotlight our monthly behavior expectations. So it could be the expectation in the cafeteria one month, it could be the expectation when we're out in the schoolyard, those type of things. And the third thing we do during the assemblies is we do a staff spotlight. So we pick a core team, we do a little slideshow with them, and staff members are able to share a little bit about them, students get to know them. So most recently we did our behavior test for the month of May, which was really nice to see. Other endeavors that our Shark Spirit team lead are, they've led the Campus Beautification Week this year, a College Day door decorating contest, attendance recognition. Again, they just do a lot of, they help set that positive climate on campus. And along with this Shark Spirit team, we also have the school culture team. Our school culture team is also made up of teachers, our school social worker, administrators. Their approach is a little bit different to supporting the community. So one of the things that school culture team does is they look for and bring resources around Heritage Awareness Months, such as Latinx, Filipino, Black, Native American, for example. And they also do a lot of doors and mirrors activities, not just for teachers to use in the classroom, but with staff as well. So one of the things that we try to do to be aligned also with our district's really good practice is the doors and mirrors concept, where we're able to see, as people of color, we're able to see ourselves in the curriculum and how we teach it, but we're also able to see into other cultures as well, right? So that doors itself and the mirrors. They also lead the monthly school culture team chats. A more recent one was a culturally sustaining teaching one. So again, it just gives our teachers agency and space to talk about, about being educators in the time we live in. And along with that, I think all of you are probably familiar already with Jean Hamilton, she's part of our College Alliance. So Jean supports our staff's social emotional health. She's at our monthly staff meetings, and she's also there every Thursday, just being able to check in with teachers. She brought something on site called Listening Partnerships, where she's taught us the gift of listening and also being listened to. And then she has a San Miguel Teacher Resiliency Group on campus. She does something with administrators as well. And she's also at a new teacher meetings to support some of the resiliency. And along with that, we also have a very robust counseling team on campus. We have Gladys Mazariegos, and we had the honor of having 2 Czech interns this year as well. And as you can see, if you look at the charts from left to right, counseling, the need for counseling has gone up this year when we compare it to last year. Student referrals have doubled from 29 to 60 this year. Students receiving counseling has also gone up. And then just check-ins have gone from 47 to over 90 this year. And the check-ins are nothing to do with the kids that are receiving counseling already, they're just separate check-ins. So there's been a lot of need for counseling on campus this year. That team has also led just rebooting our calming corners this year, check in, check out, community circle, peer mediations, just a lot of the restorative practice work, and gender support plans as well. So on average this year, we've had about 10 students on the wait list for counseling, but by the end of the year, everyone got assigned to a counselor. We don't do before, after school counseling. The goal for counseling on site is for the student to receive counseling to be able to go back to class and receive support there. However, sometimes parents do come to us and they'll ask for either additional counseling services or family counseling for before and after school, and we do try to direct them to some agencies in the area. And as far as like our gender support plan, it really just helps. The plans help students create a plan with their gender identity, which might be different what was assigned from birth. For example, a student plan can support a student in communicating how they'd like to be referred to, and also just resources. And actually this year, a few students came to us for these resources. And also on the flip side of that, we've had families come to us and say, hey, this is my student, how can you support he or she at school? And parents have also brought us resources. It's been this really good, just like learning community for all of us, where we're learning just right beside our teachers and our students and then our community as a whole. So it's been pretty great. And then these next few slides will focus on parent involvement. So even through the pandemic, we were able to have some safe community events this year. We had multicultural night, for example, this year. We had an outdoor movie night. We have family Zumba nights during the week. And we have a monthly dine out. We actually have one next Tuesday. So if you guys would like to join us at Roberto's Cantina next Tuesday, please come support us. And we had our Caminata, the walkathon this year, which raised close to $25,000. So that was pretty amazing. A lot of this work, most of this work was led by our PTA. We have a great PTA presence on campus. And then these next slides are just some more recent Panorama survey results. So bear with me. I'm going to read through these slides only because there's a lot of data that I want to make sure that I share with you guys. So you can see the student strengths. They communicated to us that they have a strong sense of belonging in the school. Cultural awareness is another one. Challenges for them were emotional regulation and growth mindset. So 65% of our students responded favorably to having a strong sense of belonging in the school. Over 70% of students felt that they had support from teachers as well. Under cultural awareness, 72% of students responded that they get along with other students who are different from them. Challenges, about half of our students communicated that after being upset, it is difficult for them to get themselves to relax. And when things are going wrong, they have difficulty staying calm. So I think just that self-regulation piece after coming back, especially from the pandemic, has been a challenge, but it's awesome that students are able to recognize that in themselves at such a young age. For family, areas of strength, so they felt that family support was definitely an area of strength for our community. However, what I'm really proud of is that 99% of families say that they feel welcome coming to school. 98% say that they feel valued for our school. So that was really eye-opening in a great way that the work that our teachers, our staff is doing, making that positive school environment is translating over to how parents feel. 81% of families also identified cultural awareness as a school strength. And parents also said that they feel proud their students are able to learn about other people in classes. Challenges for families, so 72% of families responded that they are concerned about childcare. So again, that before and after school childcare, and about their students' social emotional well-being and regulation, those type of things. So they're seeing it as well. We recognize as a school that childcare continues to be a need in our community. We have California Young World on campus. They serve about 35 families or students. We have our CalAS program, which serves about 80 families. Families also mentioned just the cost of living in Sunnyvale is very high. And of course, with gas prices being what they are, and food and all those type of things, that's an area of need. We're very fortunate to have like a la carte food truck, dinner bundles that go home. We have food distribution, those type of things. I think something that really helped out this year was that all families got free lunch on campus. I thought that was a big plus for our school community. Oops, sorry. And then finally, we have our staff, feedback from staff. So areas of strength. So over 90% of our staff felt comfortable and were confident in discussing race-related topics with students. And 94% of our staff feels that they're supported by administration and helping advance equity and inclusion in the classroom. Challenges, so only 30% of staff responded favorably to being able to have positive staff relationships on campus. And even though that's up from the previous year, and I think a little bit above our district average, there's room for growth. I think the pandemic and then just kind of even, are we supposed to be together? Are we not eating lunch? All those opportunities to build community has been a challenge this year, but and this is a joke. Our intervention is just to have more parties next year. And Jim, that's kind of that's the end of our presentation.
Yeah.
Well,
big questions.
Thank you so much. before we have the board questions, it's time for public comment. So if there's any member of the public that would like to ask a question or provide a comment about the presentation, please use the raise hand feature now. Okay, I don't see anybody. Board, any discussion or questions or comments?
¿Algo? Well, muchas gracias por todo el trabajo y toda la pasión que das a los niños.
Al contrario, gracias.
And I'm also very glad that you were recognized yesterday for all your extra work. Yeah. And I was listening to one of, I think it was the resource person or one of the teachers that was saying that one of the things that people say in the survey was that they felt very connected to you and they were feeling self-identified with you and the fact that you are in the same culture and that you can speak to them in Spanish. And that made people actually knock at the door and get and talk to you maybe way more than they should have otherwise. So that's great. So people felt very comfortable, and yeah, I think that's a great asset to have. Also, well, we're talking a lot this year about the help that we've been able to give in the social emotional aspect to our kids. I think you say that the school had enough people to help them and you didn't have any waiting lists at the end of the year?
At the end, they were all assigned, but during the year was a challenge. We usually had about 10 kids on the waiting list. Yeah. And sometimes we just had families también that maybe went through their own trauma, like maybe parents, not necessarily the kids, but it was impacting kids. So sometimes families would come and say, hey, could I get like counseling for me, right? Like the parents. So it was yeah, a little bit different than previous years, I would say.
Okay. And when you say that the families are also getting the free food, that you have the food harvest going there?
Yeah, we have the Friday distribution and then we have the a la carte. I think now it's on Tuesdays. So, and then we get the bundles that families sign up for from the cafeteria they're able to take home.
And how is the volunteering? Have you been able to get parents inside the school with all this COVID madness or?
We have a strong, somos una escuela chiquita pero fuerte. So we have, especially more recently now that field trips are coming back, so that's one way to kind of get our parents to sign up for volunteering. They're back in school. It was a little bit on hold for most of the year as far as parents really wanted to come back and get into the classrooms and those type of things. We started a little bit slow, just kind of having volunteers like Project Cornerstone volunteers like reading outside before they came inside. But we definitely have a strong parent community and presence that want to come back into the classroom and volunteer.
And how are you doing right now with the math program in Spanish? The teachers translate the classes from the approved curriculum?
It's a little bit different for each grade level. We use SFUSD math support. We also use expressions. So teachers really just cater to differentiate for their students. But it's still a bit of a challenge like we were saying earlier as far as the curriculum itself. Yeah,
well, thank you very much.
No, I was saying, gracias.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yes, my concern is about curriculum as well. What can we do as a board to support the finding of more rich primary sources in Spanish of literature, as well as additional appropriate resources in Spanish to support not only students, but families to understand concepts so that they can help their students?
That's a really good question. I think for me, one of the things is just whether it's English or Spanish, is that it's a continuum. Like curriculum, I think it's always going to be, we're going to find something better, something that works more for our community, those type of things. When I look at the Spanish, like even for me, just coming back to being a bilingual or dual immersion school after being away from it a few years, it's always a journey. So I think just having that open communication between site and district level, I would feel very supportive from our district. Like if I say, hey, I found this new curriculum or let's work on this, it's always all ears. So I think having just that two-way communication, which our district does a really good job of, listening to our teachers. They're the ones on the ground and they're the ones that are vetting some of those resources and stuff. But I think, kind of getting away from translating kind of, from English to Spanish to looking for like authentic Spanish literature or work, because that's a lot different. It's going to have a different impact on student learning as well, which is, I don't think it's a huge market right now, but I think it's something that's going to hopefully catch on and get bigger.
So it's just not available in the community, in community as a whole. It's rather than a lack of resources that we're able, a lack of feeling that we're supporting you. It's just a market niche that hasn't developed as vibrantly as it needs to be.
Yeah. And I think something that helps with our site is just kind of giving that autonomy, like, hey, try this out, see if it works, if it doesn't. I think that's also very helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, just some questions or comments, really. Just thank you for all that you guys do, and thank you for the presentation and the information, and yeah.
Good night, con permiso.
I had a quick question though. I had a question about, as you were talking, I was thinking about the families that are using the before and after school program, just because, we're talking about, we've been talking about programs of choice in general and like what makes things possible for families and just the need in general. So, you said there were 35, did you say 35 students or 35 families at California Young World?
35 students, I believe. It's an approximate number.
Yeah, and then about 80 at KLES. Do you know what their waiting list is like?
Only in the primary grades is there waiting list.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like in the primary grades is more of the waiting list than on the upper.
Okay. Yeah, I just wonder what the shortfall is, and maybe if there were more spots, more people would sign up. But do you have I wanted to ask about after school programs. I think I put that in my notes. Do you have, I know this year has been odd and started, again, that's for the bingo card for like euphemisms about this whole year. But were you able to get any after school programs and like what kinds of this year?
Yeah, our in-person after school program started more in the January time or right after that. But this year we had before and after school band, we had art classes, we had some teacher tutorials, we had our Spreading Arts musical in person this year. So we had that, Ballet Folklorico, which performed at our open house a couple weeks ago. We weren't able to get like Girls on the Run up and running this year or a coding class, but I think for the most part, we're bringing a lot of those programs back. Our PTA and us were working on hopefully having like an early like K1, like Spanish literacy once a month Friday, where parents are able to come in and maybe do share some other assets from the community for Spanish speaking families. So, but we're also always looking for more opportunities for after school, especially for the K2, because a lot of it's geared for upper elementary. So again, we're working with our PTA, see if we could fund some of those K1, K2 after school programs as well.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. I just want to thank you again for the tour the other week. And I just, it was really encouraging to see just how valued the parents and welcome the parents and families feel, because I'm sure that their children feel the same. And I've talked to a number of San Miguel parents who really love their experience there. And, we can just see all the hard work you're doing. And It was just done with a lot of heart. So really appreciate that.
Gracias, thank you.
Thank you. Go enjoy. You said it's your daughter who just
Yes.
graduated? Graduated high school?
5th grade.
5th grade, okay.
In her head, maybe it's high school. That's what things are.
Graduation promotion.
Exactly.
Is it high school or the same graduation as the promotion?
I appreciate it, guys. Have a good night. Buenas noches. Thank you.
Have a
Thank
nice
you. Okay, thank you so much. All right, so now we are on to item 12. It's a 12A is a public hearing on the 2022 Local Control and Accountability Plan, also known as the LCAP. Dr. Tasha Dean, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services.
Thank you. Good evening, board. Coming to you for our initial full overview of our local accountability plan and annual update. And tonight supporting me is Jonathan Watts, our coordinator of curriculum and instruction. So when we come to some data areas later in the conversation, if you have some questions, he's here so we can answer some of those questions if you have them this evening. So, so coming first to kind of give you a consolidated summary of the very long, lovely document you had an opportunity to review. And so tonight is an overview to just consolidate that and make a little bit more meaning of it and what does it really mean for our action as a school district as we move forward. So just to give a little background again, you know, you've had an opportunity, was that 2 weeks ago to kind of hear a little bit of the input from our community partners, our educational partners about what are we doing and how did this all work and what's important to them. And so it's kind of nice and at the same time frustrating because some of the things that we're seeing we want to do a better job of, our community partners are coming to us saying some very similar types of things. So that's very positive. And so tonight we're going to just talk about some of those foundational items and the areas that we're going to be highlighting as we move forward to emphasize our plans so that we are able to move forward with some of the goals that we have set for ourselves as a school district. So this slide is a focus. In our plan, we'll talk about it in a moment. Again, we have 5 major goals, but in those goals for this 3-year plan, we have some targeted areas. And in the earlier presentation, even this evening, you'll hear that. Our emphasis on our English language learners, our foster youth, students who are from a low socioeconomic background. And so these are also within the state and local priorities for us in the state of California. So, so this plan is not just a plan, it really is our journey on how we're going to get there. Being laser focused on some of the big ideas that we need to address. And really, it's our plan to envision and achieve that goal of being able to support our students' unique goals and help them to actually meet them. So what's included in the packet you received, we included our funding plan that kind of goes with that, our plan summary, and action tables, and then some of the increased services. And so it's just to kind of break such a comprehensive plan down so our community can also understand it and make meaning of it and be able to really inform our practice. And then ultimately, these items help us to ensure that as a school district, Sunnyvale is going to be able to reach the full unique potential of each of our students. Before heading into some of the details, just to recap, these are our 8 priority areas. These are the priority areas identified for us, which are foundational by the state of California and helping us to reach students' needs. And then as a reminder, our 5 goals, very important. I'd like to first emphasize goal number 3. Goal number 3 is our foundational element, right? Social-emotional, cultural. I think at each of our principal presentations over this year, I think we have heard very extensively how important that is. And this is our foundation, because if students are not regulated, if students don't feel like they belong there, it's going to be very difficult, no matter how good our instruction is, and for them to actually receive and do something with that instruction that they're receiving. So this is kind of our foundational goal, if you wanted to look at it that way. And so with that, we're going to jump into the data and the highlights and what we've learned in this first year of our 3-year plan. So on these slides, I'll go through each of the goal areas, some highlights of some growth that we've made, some areas that we still have a need in. This effort has been intensive, and I just really want to take a pause and celebrate what staff have done. It would have been very easy to just defer to COVID, blame it on COVID, but our teams have not done that. They've stayed focused on the goals and tried to achieve them, and you will see that in many of the slides. There's been some ups and downs that definitely came with some distraction on that work, and some people are actually tired. But even with the health and safety being a priority and keeping that, we've still been able to do that. So I want to acknowledge the continued work of our staff and the hard work that they're doing. So goal number 1, year outcome. I'll just kind of highlight, I think the slides somewhat speak for themselves as far as the data. So what I'll just kind of highlight is some points that will be important for you to think about as you continue to guide and support us as a board. You'll see this data in this slide is just really a celebration and also an accountability slide is the way I see that. Earlier last year, we began to talk to you about our comprehensive coordinating early intervening plan. And that's a plan that basically we're required to do as a state because we have areas of disproportionality as it relates to our special education students. And so with that, that we hate to have plans like that. That's the bottom line of it. But the reality is they allow us to get better because it forces us to look at some areas that we may not have seen. And so with that work actually conducted by Linda as well as Jonathan, they did a lot of data analysis to come up with where are the areas of access that we need to look at for our students. And this slide and these goals actually came from that. Some of our special education classrooms, and specifically our special day classrooms, were not having full access to some of the math and reading curriculums. They were getting some of the interventions, but some of the core academic areas were not there. And so this helped us to identify some of those deficit areas and to begin filling those gaps. And so our next slide will talk about some of the progress on that. So very pleased to talk about the work of Linda and our 2 special education coaches, Jill Seymour and Camille, who really went deep. I mean, they did an incredible analysis of different type programs to say, which one is really the right one. And teachers piloted these different programs to try to figure out some of that. In addition to that, we were able to get to our teachers, all of them, the core curriculum that they needed in order to fulfill both the language arts as well as the mathematics that students need and that teachers need in order to instruct in those particular content areas. So in this slide, as we move forward to goal number 2, we brought this data to you mid-year around January when we get our annual update. For the most part, this data remained pretty consistent. Some areas have jumped just a tad bit. There was a bit of discrepancy during that time because not all students had taken some of the benchmarks that we were participating in as a district. But in this particular slide, you'll definitely see kind of where we are. And in the slides to come, you'll also see some highlights with regards to additional root cause analysis that we're going to need to do in order to really fully understand the data. Because just looking at the percentages at this time don't really tell us the full story in order to be able to intervene the way that we want to. So further, these are the expected outcomes that we were hoping to look to in some of the areas. I want to highlight in particular the slide, the square to the right, where it talks about our targeted groups, and how we're progress monitoring utilizing our benchmark assessment in WEA, and some of the other classroom instructional practices that we're doing to address our baseline data in order to really grow that data individually for each and every student. And so you'll see from this slide, we definitely have more root cause analysis that we're going to need to do. Moving forward to goal 3, in the earlier presentation, you heard a little bit about attendance and some of the challenges around COVID. We've been able to do pretty well with regards to some of our chronic absenteeism. We still haven't hit our mark yet that we want to, but this year in particular around that late December, January surge we had, we definitely hit a higher level with regards to chronic absenteeism. And then for us as a district, we take it all. So whether it's excused, COVID, whatever, it means you miss instructional time. So we do factor that into our percentages in order to really look at what the problem is and to actually address it. So that kind of accounts for a percentage, but there's a percentage of our families that prior to COVID were still some of these families who were not getting to school. And so in the work that we're doing, we're continuing to focus on engagement opportunities that come with support, not just for the student, but sometimes it's with family, with routines, and things that we can actually help with. The other way I want to shake your mind about goal number 3, again, it's that framework slide that we talked about. Like if kids are not present, we can't teach them. If kids are not regulated, they can't take the content. So it has to be an integrated approach with the academics, incorporating that social emotional learning and getting them to school. Whenever we get them to school, each and every day counts, especially for our students who already have gaps in their learning. That time becomes very important to their success and growth. So moving on to just expected outcomes here. Again, I feel really confident and feel good about the work that we're doing. You'll see our goal as a school district is to have 1% or less chronic absenteeism of our groups. So we didn't hit that this year, but we actually still made a lot of progress for some targeted students. And as I said, a lot of that did have to do with COVID, the high chronic absenteeism increase this year. But in addition to that, when we do look at some of the students who are having some of the difficulty, you'll see here, like on the referral rate, you'll see what the rates were in comparison to what they have risen to. And a lot of that had to do with self-regulating behaviors. You heard Mr. Berard talk about just students just not knowing about space. Like, what is school behavior? What is school behavior versus me in my bedroom behavior, right? So very different behaviors that students are trying to navigate through. And then goal number 4, look at some of these big data points here, things that we're trying to accomplish. And while our parents feel very favorable, they have some really positive things to say about what we're doing, which I think is wonderful because we can build upon that. And when we do ask parents about what they want, we are seeing very varied needs. So as a result of that, we're going to really be looking at how we offer different options from a district perspective. School sites will continue to do some of the work that they're doing with families, but our work at a district level is going to be about targeting some of the groups that we're not quite hitting. Some of the variability that parents are sharing is about their interests, their time, their capacity to learn and what different types of ways that they need to get information. And a lot of them are asking for more one-to-one time. We're also going to do some training around home visits, how to do a home visit, and let that kind of enhance our work with some of our families. And then lastly, we're going to start the year. It just was too much this year, but so we'll be starting 2022-23 with our special education families, doing some one-to-one, some small sessions, some open houses, and other things for them, in order to better meet and hear their needs. Kind of continuing with the expected outcomes here, you see we're definitely wanting 100% of our families to feel like they're heard and they're getting what they need to be the parent they want to in this district. Again, parents are feeling very valued And even just recently, this past Tuesday, we had our district leadership advisory council meeting, and those families again feel validated. They feel like they've been heard. But I love what one of them quoted at the end of that meeting. They said, yes, we feel heard. We feel the goals have been established. We see them. Yes, they're clear. They said, now we just need to implement the goals. And so I agree. I think we have good goals based upon what our families and our community are saying, but now we have to begin to implement those goals. As I shared, we have done a Healthy Kids survey. We finished our Panorama survey. We're going to start with our families in special education with a more targeted focus to start next school year. And then we'll come back to you with some updates in one form, whether it be a presentation or through a board report, to hear how that additional information will be informing our practice as a school district. And then our goal number 5, a big one, real big goal here. We're looking at our data presented, and Jonathan has just shared so much data in this plan, but also he's been sharing significant amount of data with our principals, because we really are trying to figure out where are these gaps, what is happening, what targeted interventions are working, and to what degree. So we're going to really begin to dig in a little bit deeper. Ms. Valentine's working on figuring out walkthrough protocols with our principals and other leaders on the campus, incorporating teachers and coaches into that work, and just really having critical conversations and letting people feel like they can be authentic about those conversations, because it's through that authenticity that we're really going to be able to work through and achieve some of the goals we have set for ourselves, because we do feel we can actually achieve these goals. And so you'll see we really want to increase our classified reclassification on an annual basis. You'll see 85% of our teachers fully implementing some of the English language development, and Ms. Valentine's really working on some of those particular areas. And then just increasing proficiency. If you look at the data, we have some areas like it's puzzling me as we look at it. And so we need to really figure out what's beneath that if we're going to really be able to intervene the way that we need to. And so with that, there is hard work to be done. But I wanted to end on this particular slide. When Ms. Fisher came to you with the Ellis presentation, she talked about this particular student. And I just wanted to leave it as a reminder, because while there are many more we have to continue working for to support, we have these celebrations. All of our principals are able to bring where it's working. We just have to do more of it more rapidly. And it's through our better understanding of the data and the challenges that we do have as a district that will allow us to get there. And so with that, I would like to pause here and give us an opportunity for any additional questions or review or clarification based upon questions that you have.
Okay, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's a public hearing, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so we're gonna now open the public hearing. It's 8:29. Very proud of myself for being able to read my clock incorrectly. So it's 8:29, and I'm opening the public hearing. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this item? Please use the raised hand feature on Zoom. Okay, it's 8:30 and I'm closing the public hearing. Board, any comments or questions for Dr. Dean and team?
I'll just go real fast. I really appreciate being able to see like the clear kind of, right, like talk about like the clear expected outcomes and like what our goals are and where we're at, right? And like it's fine that, I mean, it's not fine that we're not meeting them, but it's fine, right? We are imperfect people trying to do the best we can. And so it was just nice to see it. And hopefully people, like for me, it didn't discourage me, but it's like, okay, we have some numbers, we have targets, we get to work on this. So for me, it was a feeling of like we've been doing this great work and we're going to keep working on it and digging into it. So it made me excited. And I can't remember how you worded it, but I love that at the end when you showed the picture, you said something about like, we have bright spots, right? We are figuring out how to connect to kids. And then you say, we need to do more of it more rapidly, right? So I said, I love that. I was like, ooh, that was good. So, and I'm talking too fast because I'm excited, sorry. But thank you. And I know there's lots of people behind this. And then just generally, I mean, I had a few questions in the packet review about like our updates, but generally I'm just really excited about like, I felt like there was a little bit more intentionality about some of the target groups. I think sometimes I feel like our LCAP in the past was a little more broad, which not necessarily bad, but I think being very like explicit about some of these target groups or like just things like it's not necessarily a group, but like engaging more families, right? So I'm just excited. I appreciate all the intentionality and work that you guys are putting behind it and doing the data and the numbers, making me excited. And yeah, it's great stuff.
Okay, Isabel, I can't really see you, so I'm wondering, Isabel, do you have any thoughts on this?
No, I think a lot of this was already answered on the package review. And thank you for all the work you guys put behind this.
Nancy?
Yes, I appreciate that this is a snapshot of a journey. This is our results from year one, and that we really understood that kids were coming to, unlike previous years, kids were actually coming to us without having typical skill sets that they might have acquired because they weren't in the environment in which we're now placing them of what a school is like and what peer interaction is like. And so I appreciate the scaffolding of understanding those levels of success that need to happen before you can even access the curricular areas. So I thank you for that. I wish that report that you had given was right up front in the packet. That was fabulous. That was so accessible. It gives that high level context to the deep dives that you've done and that we're going to need to do in order to be effective in year two.
Thank you. Yeah, when will that presentation be uploaded for the public? Will that go in with the minutes?
Yes. Yes, it will.
Awesome. Okay, so I had a couple of thoughts on the LCAP. First of all, the packet review was very thorough. I really appreciate all the questions that were answered. You know, in general, I guess I always feel with the LCAP that I understand this is an update, and we've been having a lot of conversations around things. You know, there's always that tension because this is a legal document. It reminds me so much of my son's IEPs, where you really want to make sure the goals are achievable and measurable. And you want to make sure that, you know, and then once it's there, then it has to be measured and tracked. And so, you know, I feel like we are doing as a district a lot of equity work and a lot of, you know, interesting work. And there's so much, you know, just like what we were seeing with the San Miguel presentation tonight about all the different ways that they're working on family engagement at their site, for example, or the equity work that their teams are doing. So we're learning about it and we're doing it. And I guess for me, the higher level thing for me is that I wish that, you know, we could somehow, I don't really want to say centralized, but it seems like there's a lot of language in the LCAP that is some sites are doing this, or parent education engagement at some sites is happening this way. And I understand that every site is different, but I also feel like, you know, maybe in the future, like as we move forward, family education or in family engagement, that there might be some best practices that we just decide are a baseline as a district. And even if there's a school site that says, oh, that's really lame, we don't want to do that, we only have 10% of the population that affects, like we might be saying yes, and we think that's really important for the 10%. You know, I just feel like there's a balance there, and we're moving there. And I just I think for me, just personally, there was just some frustration that we're not quite where I wish we were, you know, for some of that stuff, but we're moving that way. And
Absolutely.
And I had a question on your summary sheet that you just showed, and I think it's because it flashed by so fast. But I think you said on page 17 of your slides, you said that 8% of English learners were making progress towards their goals, and then like towards academic learning goals, and that
Proficiency.
is it really 8%?
Yeah, when we look across the entire population, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's not about their individual personal goals, it's
Right.
the proficiency.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So my question is, are we expecting to have, like, is that lining us up for more long-term English learners in theory, or like, is that different than previous years?
I would say there's a lot of factors, which is why you heard me say probably several times about root cause analysis. When we looked at the data, if you recall the additional slides that we provided regarding reading proficiencies and mathematics, when you just kind of look at that, sometimes things just pop up, right? But there were only maybe one or two things that popped up, but not enough to say, oh, that's a trend, we need to jump on that, or oh yeah, let's do more of that. I think some of the targeted work we've been doing with the earlier grades, like the K2, we definitely are seeing that rise up in the data a little bit. But when we look across all grade levels in both mathematics and reading, we know we have work to do, but there's some things that popped up that says we need to go a little bit beneath that data and figure out what's going on with that. Like, who are those students? What's happening for them? What type of instruction did they get in the classroom? So that'll be a part of our work. And so I appreciate it, Bridget, when you talked about the goals and objectives in the LCAP plan, but sometimes there's things above and beyond that we have to do. But I think that's a bit of the team's goal this year, is to have more data talks, to have more walkthroughs on campuses, so we can really have a much deeper level of understanding for what's working and not working, and be able to provide as much support to our teachers and our instructional leaders on the campus as we possibly can to try to figure out where the holes are more specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, and then the other thing was those walkthroughs, that walkthroughs are principals, APs, coaches, like the leadership teams, like that's going to be district-wide this year?
That will be district-wide, and that will also include coaches and potentially some teachers too.
Mm-hmm. And then I just did have one question about CHAC. I've heard that like some other school districts are discontinuing services with CHAC because they're changing their funding structure. And I saw in here that we're going to change they're going to be longer term interns. Can you just tell me a little about that plan?
Yes, so the interns do a good job, but for the most part, for the last at least 5 years, the interns are here 2 days a week. So what happens is if a student is out or they're out, now you're down to 1 day a week for service for a kid, and it doesn't allow you to make up that day later in the week. So one of the big requests we ask for is having long-term interns 4 days a week, because that one allows them to be a part of the school culture. It allows for when there are absences. It also allows them to be a part of some of the multidisciplinary teams like our MTSS in order to better support students and their families. And so we're hoping that allows more intensive support when we need it. Then by freeing up our social workers who can do some of the more check in, check out, some of the case management that comes for with supporting the different campuses. So that's what we're looking to, and we are evaluating with some new metrics that we're using in the district and also through the work that we're doing with the county as we look at ramping up our behavioral and mental health supports across the district actually.
Okay, and my very last thing is, what do you think about, I know last year we talked about, it was the first year of the LCAP, and we talked about possibly including access to basic needs in the LCAP, and that was kind of rejected because they said, well, we work on that elsewhere. But, you know, the culturally responsive teaching and the social emotional learning, if the kids are hungry, they also cannot, you know, think or learn. So I'm just wondering if you still feel like that belongs outside the LCAP because of tracking, you know, not tracking in the school sense, but tracking in terms of like being a measurable goal or being like, does it belong? Do you still really feel it does not belong in this document?
Yeah, we still feel that way because there's some things that are, you know, just outside of our control, to be very honest. And I can't say with 100% for us as a district, but I feel pretty confident. Most of our team would probably agree. We work really hard to figure out where that hole is. And the teachers are becoming more skilled at recognizing when some of those outside things are impacting kids and bringing it to where they need to, whether it's their principal, their assistant principal, or the social worker on the campus, but just trying to do a better job of when they recognize it and kind of treating it like CPS, like you don't need to know for sure. If you just think there's a problem, go ahead and share it. And then we can, as teams, work on that so teachers can keep teaching and we can kind of support them with that. The other big way that we're trying to address that, even though it's not a part of our LCAP, is we have drawn with the county on the behavioral grants that are going out in order to increase mental and behavioral supports. And even though that's the title, it's really about developing community schools at all of our school sites. We're going to start targeted with 2 sites. And the whole purpose of that is really one-stop shopping. Like any parent on any kid on any of our campus don't have to worry because they will know that when they show up there, we're going to figure out what they need there and they don't have to go somewhere else to get it. That's kind of our long-term vision for supports for all of our students across the district.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Board, anything else?
Bridget, if I could just say a word.
Sure.
Tasha kind of just jumped in this in the middle, and it's been a bit of a handoff, but she's standing up here with confidence, like she owns the whole process, and I really, really appreciate that. She's results oriented. You appreciated the measurable outcomes that are included in it, and that's what Tasha's about. So I want to tell you just how much I really appreciate that. One of the themes that has come from the board that I've heard through the packet review and through everything, I'd sum it up with these 2 words, and they are be bold. So be bold moving forward, especially in this coming year. And I have confidence in Tasha and the rest of the team really that we will be bold because we have the opportunity to do that. I think we wanted to be more bold this year, and then we did well. We didn't let COVID be an excuse, but we have an opportunity to be more bold in the future. So anyway, I wanted to thank you, Tasha, because I know that was a hard handoff and you've done it really, really well. So thank you.
Well, it definitely has not just been me, and that's why Jonathan's here. He's been amazing. And He likes data even more than I do, so I'm excited.
I just want to share one more. I was like looking, I was saying earlier, I was excited generally, but I was looking at my notes and I just want to call out one of the ones I liked especially. So it's under goal 1 and it's action 2. And it's all the different bullets kind of related to diversity of our staff, right? So it's not just, and I love just kind of how it hit, like that happens with recruitment, but it also happens with how we're supporting all of our different teachers and staff. And then there was bullets about evaluation and making that like, right? Evaluation is a great way for all of us, like to just be better people, right? Like we do unofficial evaluations in our own life to be better humans. And then, so I'm excited about all of those bullets in that piece because I think, right, as we try to move the needle to close the achievement gap, it's the people in our district who are going to help do that, right? And so this list of things to help support the people in our district, I'm excited about.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tasha.
Thank you.
And Jonathan, who I can't see, but I hear he's there.
He's running over.
Hey, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for being here, Jonathan.
Thanks.
Okay, all right, so we are on to item 13, or no, 12B, proposed public hearing of a proposed 22-23 adoption budget. The recommendation is that we hold a hearing on the proposed budget and discuss it. Lori Van Gogh, Chief Business Officer.
Thank you very much. I'll just jump right in if that's okay. So these are our 22-23 revenue assumptions for the adoption budget. Our property tax revenues projected to increase 5% over 21-22, which is approximately $4 million. Our LCFF hold harmless remains flat at the 12-13 rate of 2.9 million. Our EPA is projected at 1.1 million. And our parcel tax revenue is also projected at 1.1 million. One-time COVID relief funding for the Expanded Learning Opportunity Program grant, the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, more commonly known as ESSER, this is ESSER 3, and the Educator Effectiveness Grant are projected at $4.9 million, this funding can be used for after-school and summer enrichment programs, professional development for teachers, paraprofessionals, administrators, and classified staff, supports to address student learning loss, technology, facility repairs and improvements, and mental health services and supports. Based on the projection from the County Self Office, our state special education revenues projected at $6 million, which is in line with the 21-22 level. All federal categorical revenues projected at the 21-22 rate and assumes the same number of qualifying students. Restricted and unrestricted lotteries projected for a combined total of $228 per ADA, which is approximately $1.3 million. And finally, our lease revenue is budgeted at $5.9 million, which is based on our 21-22 contracts. So this is an overall look at the general fund revenue, property taxes and state aid being the largest part of our revenue budget at $97.5 million, which is a little over 80% of our budget. Parcel taxes and EPA are projected at $2.1 million, which is 1.7% of the budget. Our lease revenue, as I said, is $5.9 million, which is 4.8% of the budget. Our COVID relief funding is $4.9 million, which is 4% of the budget. Federal revenue is projected at $1.7 million, which is a little over 1.4% of the budget. State revenue is projected at $7.8 million, which is a little shy of 6.5% of the budget, and local revenue is $1.6 million for 1.32, for a total revenue budget of $121.5 million. So these are the major expenditure assumptions built into the budget. Certificated FTE is projected at 424.5 FTE, which is in line with the 22-23 projection that was included in the 21-22 second interim budget. But this is a 9 FTE reduction over 21-22 for teacher and TOSA FTE. Classified FTE has increased 8 FTE since the second interim budget, and this is an increase for paraeducators and health assistant positions. Certificate and classified compensation changes, which include step and column movement and longevity increases, are also included in the budget. The 22-23 STIRS rate is projected at 19.1%, which is a 4.7% increase over 21-22. Hers is projected at 25.37%, which is a 10% increase over 21-22. And based on the 2022 health and welfare rates, United Healthcare rates are projected to increase by 5.2%. And Kaiser's projected to increase very slightly at 0.005%. And this is over the 2021 rates. And based on 21-22 ADA information, our charter school in lieu payments for Summit Denali, Rocket Ship Discovery Prep, and Rocket Ship Los Sueños Academy are projected at $800,000. So this is an overall look at our expenditure budget. $102.3 million of our expenditure budget is for salaries and benefits, which is the largest portion of our expenditure budget at just shy of 87.5%. $2 million for books and supplies, which is approximately 1.75% of the budget, and $12.6 million for services and other expenditures, which is just shy of 11% of the budget. Included in this category are additional supports for child nutrition at state preschool, the transfer to the Special Reserve Fund for future technology upgrades, as well as contracted services for consultants and assessments and the purchase of software license and COVID-related safety equipment for a total expenditure budget of $116.9 million. So this is a multi-year look at the ratio of revenue to expense. Our 21-22 estimated actuals revenues projected at $124.5 million, which is an increase of $5.5 million over 2021. And the 21-22 estimated actuals expenses are projected at $120.1 million, which is $16.4 million higher than 2021. And based on the assumptions in the proposed adoption budget, our revenue is projected to outpace expense by 3.8%, which is approximately $4.5 million. So this is a multi-year look at the general fund beginning and ending balances. The 21-22 ending fund balance is projected to decrease slightly over second interim, due in part to an increase in our expenditure budget for contracted services for student mental health supports. The 22-23 ending fund balance is projected to increase by $4.5 million over 21-22. Due to the shifting of certificate and classified FTE into one-time funding for the Expanded Learning Opportunity Program Grant, ESSER 3, and the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. So this is a look at our unrestricted reserves, which is a combination of the unrestricted general fund and the special reserve fund, Fund 17. Based on the assumptions in the 22-23 adoption budget, we are projected to have a total restricted reserve at year's end of $46.5 million. A portion of that amount has been set aside for current requirements and future projects, which include revolving cash, stores, estimated carryover, our Lakewood Library project, future textbook adoptions, future maintenance projects, projected salary schedule increases for SEA, CSEA, and SCAM, a projected increase in lieu tax pass-through to charter schools, future technology upgrades. After all these set-asides, we still have a 25% reserve balance is in compliance with our board policy. So just to quickly wrap up, the projected $4.5 million increase in the 22-23 general fund ending balance is due to the shifting of classified and certificated salaries to one-time funding sources. Our special reserve fund ending balance is $14.5 million for a total unrestricted reserves of $46.5 million, which is 39.8%. Forecast years all have positive ending balances in the multi-year projection and will maintain our basic rate status.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you. Okay, so it's a public hearing. So it is now 8:54 p.m. and I'm opening the public hearing. If there's any member of the public who wishes to comment on this or at this time, please use the raise hand feature. Oops, I raised my own hand. I didn't need to do that. I was trying to find the participant. Okay. Okay, it's 8:56 p.m. and I'm closing the public hearing. Board, any discussion or comments?
I can go first. I just had, well, first, like, thank you as always for like giving us like clear information and for all the hard work that you do, I appreciate it.
Of course.
I just wanted to highlight, it was a question I had put in packet. I don't necessarily need to like answer, but I just want to highlight kind of for the board. So my question was that how can we budget more high quality, effective tutoring in this upcoming school year? And I put that in there just kind of generally, right? I know that like we've talked about it and it's an important piece for us in our district, but just, you know, the extra money we were given from the state and the federal government, a lot of it is for that purpose, right? To help the students who really struggled during COVID and during distance learning. So just, I would like more I can see, like, I know we're working on it, but just the more we can budget for that, if there is extra money to put it towards that, not just throwing it, right? That's why I included like the high quality, right? I don't want to just like do something random, but putting more money, even more money towards that high quality, high dosage tutoring is something that I support.
No question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Isabel, I can't quite see you, so.
Isabel just said no comment.
Oh, no comment. Okay. Okay, I apparently can't see you or hear you. I'm really sorry. Nancy, anything to add?
I appreciate you being conservative in your numbers, given the volatility of inflation in our area. And I know we're still kind of current to the housing potential slowdown. So I appreciate your conservative estimations in projecting out this budget for the out years. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just echo the comments that have been said. Thanks so much, Lori, and great job.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So we're on to item 13, review and action, approval of resolution. Oh no, actually 12C. Sorry. 12C, discussion on CSBA coast to coast advocacy in Washington, D.C. This is a report and a board discussion, and there is no presentation. So as such, we will take public comments first. If there's any member of the public who'd like to speak on this item, please use the raised hand feature now. Okay, not seeing any. Board, I did see some discussion questions that were in the packet review. Are there any that you'd like to, should we just go through them quickly, or I just wanted to, we can just go through them one at a time, or Nancy, I saw your hand went up for a minute. Did you just want to start?
Oh, yeah, what I'd like to know, this is the first experience of CSBA doing advocacy at the federal level. Did it meet with your expectations of what they said that they were going to deliver?
Okay, Isabel or Michelle, would you like to answer?
Yeah, it was, I felt that it was important, and they told us that it was important for them to hear our stories as our local stories there for our representatives, how the letters and how the actions that they were taking or they were not taking yet reflected in our community. So we were able to give our stories and how important it was for us for them to sign the petitions, to follow through some policies, to give extension to some plans and everything that we were asking for, how it affected us. So I think that was very important and powerful to do. Also, yeah, I don't know about in general for CSBC. That was your question?
I think the question was like, did it meet your expectations for what they said they were gonna do?
Yes, I think they did. And actually, like a week after we came, well, there was a letter that was already on, but the one about broadband access was signed maybe a couple of weeks after, and it got a lot of support, including the support of all the people that we talked with, and they were actually recommending it.
And I would just like add on, so it was interesting for me. I mean, I don't think I knew fully what I was going to expect. And kind of, I think I know one of the questions was kind of related to the state advocacy, which I've done. I got to do that twice, I think, in person. I can't remember now, once or twice in person, and then I've done that virtual as well. And so I think, like when we were there, like towards the end of it, there was a kind of like a debrief time where those of us who attended gave feedback to them, right? Gave feedback, or asked questions, kind of said things that we liked, things that just observations. And someone had shared, they said, hey, this felt more like an education for us than an advocacy. And like when the person said that, that was my thought too. I was like, yeah, that's true. Because at that point, we hadn't even met with our legislator. We didn't even know for sure if we were gonna be able to meet with our legislator. So I was learning a lot, but I was like, am I really advocating? And then one of the, I think it was the director or something of CSBA, helped remind us that all those people who came and spoke to us, like when we went to the Department of Ed and they spoke to us, the fact that they were sitting in a room with 150 or so delegates of educators from California, they were like, that is advocacy alone, just our presence. But then we also, right, like would ask them questions or give them feedback. And so I then realized like, oh, no, it was advocacy, me just being there and saying, hey, I care about education and these things matter. So that was just a kind of personal, as I was there, what it kind of felt like. So I realized, oh, advocacy is not necessarily just going and talking to your legislator, which that is still important advocacy, but these other pieces were advocacy as well. And then the educational piece, right? Like we learned a lot. And then I think also for me, another value piece was similar to CSBA, like the AEC annual conference, the time to connect with other board members, right? So like our lunches and dinners were mostly on our own. And so we would get together and just talking about our different experiences, you know, as board members and things that we're doing in our different districts is also an added value. So that was kind of, that might have been more than you wanted, but that's kind of my summary of the experience.
Well, and I would also add that the trainings that we got to go prepare were much more in depth than the CSBA ones for the state level. The CSBA trainings briefings for the state level are often an hour-and-a-half webinar, and we got that before we went. But once we were there, we were in breakout sessions for every single one of those topics that's in the leave behind. And these topics were important now, but they're also topics that are perennial topics, you know, talking about fully funding special education. And the fact that we were there with the superintendents as well made a huge difference, because it was not just CSBA, it was CSBA and AXA. And so I think that presented a very kind of different kind of message that was being sent to the people we were talking to. And also for us in the room, we could really hear very aligned perspectives, but different perspectives. So I just thought it was incredibly valuable for me as a trustee. And I think the challenge will be, you know, really sharing it out, sharing out the lessons and the feedback. The other thing is they brought up a delegate assembly. You know, we kept hearing from the people at the federal level, number one, you don't report on anything. Like they were so convinced that on all those ESSER funds, we weren't spending them and we weren't reporting on them. Like it's free money, no accountability, neither of which is true. It was interesting at the delegate assembly, they said, well, actually they had just gotten the raw data, which they shared at delegate assembly, which I'm hoping they will like forward to me any minute so I can share with all of you. But basically they showed that this school districts have been spending the ESSER funds. So ESSER 1 is almost fully spent by everybody, and ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, all these federal funds for recovery from pandemic lost learning or, different learning, that's all being proportionally spent. So they actually had data that they could go and have a meeting with, not Kamala Harris because she had COVID, but with someone else, and they could have that meeting with White House staff like that day. So that was pretty cool. But for us to be able to give that feedback, like, you're crazy, we absolutely report, it just isn't working up to you. And we are spending the money and the different things that we're spending the money on. And it's not, and just the variety of ways. And so it was just, it was very powerful. Someone asked what the highlight was. I felt personally the highlight was the African American Cultural Heritage Museum, the National Museum for that. I wish we had one on the West Coast. I wish every American and every visitor to America, I wish everyone could go to that museum because the Docented tour was just so powerful. And, for me, it was intellectually interesting. And because of the equity work, it was very just powerful in a lot of ways. But for many of the people who had African-American heritage, who were there, you could see it was their story, and they were connecting with the displays in so many different ways. Like someone's uncle was Pullman car porter, and someone else's dad marched in that march that we're seeing the thing. And so just the stories that were coming out of it and the depth and breadth of that were really powerful. And then the last lesson learned I would like to share is that they made it very clear that it's on us. They said, oh, we don't have any, we have all these resources to share with you, but if you solve this stuff, we would love to come visit you. So be bold, go do it. Yeah. Anything else you wanted to, I think there was some questions about equity or future trips. Isabel or Michelle, did you have any thoughts on those, or Mike?
I think any of our board members who want to do it, I mean, I don't think we necessarily want all of our board members going every year, but I think for sure, at least one time and maybe going several times. But I think for sure any board member who wants to have that experience, it's very valuable and worth it, and yeah.
And I guess I would say, obviously I didn't go, but I attend when I can the state superintendent's AXA meeting. And they were saying, yeah, it was a joint effort with AXA, and they just designated X number of spots. And they were just all the same things that you said, like really impressed with the potential for this activity. And so they're going to try to promote it even more next year to get more AXA members or superintendents to participate. I think, like you said, it's not necessarily something that everyone needs to go to every year, but it needs to be a strong advocacy group from the state going to Washington, D.C. And it's probably a good experience for governance team members to participate.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Bridget, I just want to say thanks for, you went like above and beyond, but those slides are great. And then it was great that like Bonnie then shared it out. And if you're going to make that resource, make it available to everyone to kind of see the highlights and things that we learned and who we got to talk to. So when I was looking through that, I was like, oh, she put a lot of time into that. So thank you, Bridget.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I have one last question. Based on your experience, how is that going to impact our federal advocacy from our district now? Are we going to?
Well, I think all of us, so I hadn't met Ro Khanna personally, but I had a connection with him, which was actually what got us the meeting scheduled. But then the fact that we now have all met him, right, was great. And there was one of the things he wanted to follow up on. And so I sent a follow-up. It was kind of related to mental health stuff. Right. So I think we've made those connections, right? We've started that connection with our, I was gonna say legislator, but I think that's not really the term you use federal level, but our representative, that we can continue, right? We can continue those conversations right here at his local office, right? You know, saying, hey, can we meet with the education staff here and let's go over it and stuff. So.
Yeah, and to add on to that, you know, I would just say that the top, he signed on to everything, right? Like, so in theory, you know, it should have been, it was an easy conversation in terms of like, everything that was actually a bill or, you know, legislation, he had put his name on, including early childhood screening and services for special education. You know, I mean, like he was signed on to everything that we were supposed to ask people. So when Michelle's question was going in there, like, well, what, you know, like, what's our ask? Because his name is already on the bill. So we're not going to say, hey, can you put your name on the bill? So what more can you do? And so we really shared personal stories and stories about our district, just that he might not necessarily be aware of. You know, Fremont, not Fremont High School District, but Fremont Unified was also in the room. So they were, you know, we spent a lot of time talking about mental health, which he supports in general. And then it came up that, you know, at the state level, CSBA and our County Office of Education is currently sponsoring a bill that would get rid of some red tape because, you know, for the behavioral health services, right? Because the systems aren't aligned, they're not coded correctly, and they're not even supposed to even talk to each other, let alone let schools get reimbursed for mental health services that might be able to be provided through a partnership with the county. So we talked to Rokana about this, and he said, well, maybe that's something we could look into at the federal level. And so CSB has already been talking to him, seeing if there's something, you know, maybe he could bring forward a bill on that, you know? So I think that just the conversations that were started were good.
Great then. So thank you for filling in some of the gaps for me. And I think it was a really robust discussion, and people can see what the added value is. So thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else on that, we're on to item 13. Okay, review and action. 13A is the approval of resolution R2224 in the matter of approving and adopting the developmental impact fee justification review and the review and update, and authorizing an increase in statutory level 1 developer fees. This goes to Brent Burns, correct?
He's making
his way to the podium now.
Okay.
You could actually see. Well, there you go.
Anything else to add, or?
No, I would recommend that the board adopts the new increase in developer fees and raises the level 1 statutory rates to the new state allocation board level.
Thank you. Any member of the public who'd like to speak on this item, please use the raised hand feature now. Okay, seeing none, board, we need a motion.
I move that we approve.
I move approval.
Oh, okay, go.
Okay, so Isabel moves and Nancy, will you second?
Yes.
Okay. Board, any questions or comments?
Nope.
Nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye, so the motion is passed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, 13, oh, Brent, you're still here? Okay, 13B is approval of resolution 2226, authorizing the conveyance of a dedication of a public utility easement to PG&E. Brent Burns.
I would recommend that the board adopts this resolution for the adoption of an easement of conveyance for PG&E installation of the EV chargers out at Fairwood Elementary School.
Thank you. If there's any member of the public who would like to speak on this item, please use the raised hand feature now. Okay, seeing none, board, we need a motion.
So does this need a public hearing?
This technically is.
No.
Okay, well, just in the recommendation, it says it's recommended that the Board of Education call for a public hearing.
So that's what this would have been.
Okay, so do we need to officially call for a public hearing real quick?
Wait, no, we're not having the public hearing now, are we?
Yeah, this for 22, 22.
This is 26.
22, 26.
Oh, excuse me, no. This is for, sorry, is this Columbia or Fairwood?
Doesn't say anything about
If it's a resolution to adopt the conveyance of an easement,
This
then
is
we
the one
would
for
need to have.
Fairwood. This is the one for Fairwood.
Then we would need a public hearing. for this one.
Okay,
Okay, so the motion is to have a public hearing, but not now.
well, no, I think technically we just needed to do a public hearing during public comment, like the other ones, and then we make a motion to approve the resolution.
Yes.
So let's just go back to public comment, start a public hearing.
Okay,
Yeah,
So can I make a move to amend the agenda to include a public hearing on this item?
do we need to do that?
well,
I don't think we need to do
Public
that.
hearings.
We can just have it because it's
Recommendation.
in the recommendation, we don't need to make an adjustment, is what Jesus just said.
Right.
Well-
Just have the public hearing now. It's in the recommendation. You could just have the public hearing now.
okay, but for public hearings, don't you have to notify of a public hearing? Isn't there all that?
And we did, I posted and everybody's been notified.
Okay, super. So I'd like to open the public hearing. It's 10:18 PM. We'll open the,
9:18.
sorry,
You
9:18.
were doing so well.
You
There's
were
so much, I know, right?
It's getting late.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Okay, so it's 9:18 PM and we're opening the public hearing for this item. So if there's any member of the public who'd like to speak during the public hearing, please use the raised hand feature. Okay, it's 9:19. We're closing the public hearing. And then we're voting. We would have a motion now.
I move to adopt resolution R 22-26, the intention to dedicate a public utility easement.
I second.
Thank you. Board, any questions or comments?
Nope.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion is passed and the resolution is passed. Thank you. We're all set. Great. Okay, the consent agenda. Item 14. Any item on the consent agenda is subject to review and discussion prior to being approved by the board. If necessary, any items may be removed for separate action. The public may address the board regarding any items on the consent agenda. If there's any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item, please use the raised hand feature now. Not seeing any, would the board like to pull any item for a separate consideration and vote? Not seeing any, board, we need a motion.
I move to approve the consent.
I move approval
agenda.
of the consent agenda.
There must be some
already.
There's a delay, so Nancy, will you move and we'll have Isabel second this time? Okay, it just seems fair. Okay, so any discussion of the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the chair votes aye. The consent agenda has passed. Thank you. Regarding item 15 for future meetings and adjournments, I just wanted to state that Isabel and Nancy, you're on the, I have you down as the subcommittee for programs of choice, and I believe that programs of choice will be on the next agenda. So will you have a chance to meet before then?
I guess we will by definition.
I mean,
Yeah, and maybe what we can do is just come up with some guiding questions. So maybe the three of us.
Yeah, we can certainly do some guiding questions, and we can look at some policies at districts that have robust programs of choice.
and I think that at the last meeting, Mala asked us to consider like she asked a few questions. So maybe we can also include those.
Right.
Okay, so our future board meeting is Thursday, June 16th at 6 p.m. It's a regular board meeting at the district office boardroom. And it is 9:22.
Before you end really quick, hold on for Jesus, did you get information from everyone about August meeting? Did people email you, or do you want to talk about it right now?
Replied, which was yourself for the 11th and Bridget was on.
Okay.
I'm
Do you guys look at your calendar and then let them know?
Yeah, I still don't know how we're gonna do the trips. Yeah, I'll try to be whenever you guys put it. Otherwise I'll call, otherwise.
So there's not one day that's better for you than the other?
Right now, no.
Okay.
Okay, and so we're still waiting for Nancy and Jeff?
Correct.
Correct, okay. All right, so.
I think, Nancy, were you saying something just now?
Oh, I would say probably the second would be better. The second date would be better than the first.
August 11th would work better for you, but you could do either. Okay.
Yes.
So we just need to check with Jeff then, yeah? Okay.
Okay, great. So it is now 9:23 and I'm adjourning the meeting. Thank you. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Bridget. Well wishes to your son.
Oh yeah, his shoulder's in pretty bad shape, so but I'm going to be back before the next board